evening and welcome to Studio 9. I'm your host, Patricia Maese. The El Paso Museum of Art is one of the Borderlands treasures. Tonight, Studio 9 is taking you inside the museum on a walk through its galleries. Founded in 1959, the museum was born from a need to house a collection of art donated by the Samuel Crest Foundation. Some of the artists that you'll find here: Botticelli, Canaletto, and of course, the renowned Tom Lea. Joining me now is the First Lady of El Paso, but also you're known as the expert when it comes to Tom Lea. You founded the Tom Lea Institute here in El Paso. There's this whole other world when it comes to Tom Lea. I mean, we know him as the artist of the Southwest and as an author, but also he was a correspondent for Life magazine as an artist during World War II. Yes. Talk about that.
Well, he was, he was working out in El Paso. He'd been doing illustrations for J. Frank Dobie, but he was contacted by a new publication, Life magazine. Right in 1941, when the United States was gearing up for war, and they wanted to do, they did a series of articles on gearing up for war. And so they asked Tom Lea, since they'd read a book of his, Dan Longwell, the founding editor, had read a book, seen his illustrations, and wrote him, had a telegram sent that asked him to do a drawing of a cavalry soldier at Fort Bliss. And that was the beginning of a career. It was really a career over the course of World War II, where he traveled over 100,000 miles and became the most noted of war correspondents in over a dozen spreads, like 11 or 12-page spreads with multiple paintings of different actions of war.
And he was actually on an aircraft carrier, did several tours, and talk about some of the artwork that he was doing while he was on those carriers.
Right. Well, he had gone on a destroyer to the North Atlantic right before we entered Pearl Harbor. And then he went to the South Pacific, where he was aboard the USS Hornet, an aircraft carrier, in August for 3 months. And Jimmy Doolittle, most people have heard of Jimmy Doolittle, the raid over Tokyo, his raiders had taken off of the USS Hornet. So the Japanese were after it. And Tom Lea went aboard and spent 3 months documenting kind of daily lives, who the people were. And then he would bring his drawings home and do paintings out of his studio in El Paso. But so when the Hornet was sunk, he was lifted off to present his drawings to Admiral Nimitz at CINCPAC. And when Nimitz is the one who broke the news to him that the Hornet had been sunk, he had observed the torpedoing of another aircraft carrier called the USS Wasp while he was there, and then they lost the Hornet. So, I mean, that was a very iffy time for the United States, because we had no coverage in the South Pacific.
It is so fascinating because he's an artist, and of course his work is beautiful, but it's important because it's history, and you refer to him as a historian covering important parts of history during this time.
Yeah, he did cover history, and there are, many 20th century artists, they create their own worlds. And Tom Lea was always interested, especially when it came to World War II, of accurately reporting things. So you can look at the ships and I mean, he would want a sailor to look at it and say he got it right, and he did. So he was honored several times by the military for his work because of his accuracy.
And of course we can find some of his work here at the El Paso Museum of Art, the Tom Lea Institute, which you helped to find as well. And you have some of those Life magazines also at the Tom Lea Institute if people want to check it out.
We do.
For the complete interview with Adair Margo, or to learn more about the Tom Lea Institute, head on over to our website, ktsm.com. Make sure you click on the Studio 9 tab.